Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. It is the game of the week, and I don't care what anybody says. Dan Lanning and the Oregon Ducks heading on the road to play Penn State in the greatest environment that college football offers us. And what we're going to do today is a good old fashioned roster battle. To those who've been rocking with the boys for a long time, we do these for the special games. We do these for the special teams where, hey, we're going to go position group by position group and say, well, what quarterback are we taking in this game? What wide receiver room are we taking in this game? What offensive line are we taking in this game? I got a lot of notes because when you're going to do a roster battle between these two football teams, you better have some reasoning because there are some strong arguments for both of these football teams going into this one. Without further ado, let's get into it. Before we do, just want to say thank you to you guys. More importantly than that, hey, if y'all enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. That would be massively appreciated. More importantly than that, would love to hear your thoughts, your roster battle results in the comment section. Appreciate you guys. Without further ado, let's get into it. Now, let's start with the most important position in the sport. That is the quarterback position. Dante Moore, Drew, who are you going to take in this one? Now, this is a very interesting conversation where go look at the film, go use the eyeballs. I think Dante Moore has played better through the early parts of 2025 than Drew has. I don't think there's any question mark about that. Here's the conversation that arguably is one of the biggest storylines in this football game. How does Dante Moore manage the situation Saturday night in Beaver Stadium? And what I mean by that is not only do you want to see how he manages the environment and the crowd noise, getting the plays in and getting the protections right, managing the hostile environment he's going to be in. This is the other thing. What's he look like when it's not perfect? And Dante Moore's looked really, really good. Oregon's been able to run the football. Oregon's been able to keep him clean. And I'm not saying Oregon can't keep him clean and run the football against Penn State, but it ain't going to be as pretty as it's been the last couple of weeks. How does Dante Moore look running this offense when it's not perfect around him? That's the biggest storyline because the argument for Drew is he's been in these environments. He's been in these football games a little bit more than Dante Moore has. And so I can see the argument for, hey, I want Drew because he's been in this environment. He's been in these kind of football games a little bit more. I'm going to personally take Dante Moore. I think this kid has been incredibly sharp through the early parts of 2025. I think you're really seeing him settle down in this Wilstein offense. You know, the ball's coming out quick. The ball's coming out on time. It's very accurate. He's keeping the ball out of harm's way. He's making big time throws when he needs to make the big time throws. Dante Moore has played like one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Now, again, the question is, can he continue to do that in this kind of environment? But through the first 3 to 4 games that we've seen in 2025, I'm going to go with Dante Moore as my quarterback in this football game. Now, moving over to the running back position. I think this one's a little bit more clear. You're going to go with Katron Allen and Nick Singleton, and that is not a shot at what Oregon has in the running back room. Oregon does not have the 1-2 punch that Penn State does. What makes Oregon's running back room unique, at least the way I look at it, they got a bunch of different guys who can do a lot of different things at a high level. Because I look at Noah Whittington and say, hey, been banged up the last couple of weeks. A healthy Noah Whittington has been dynamite to start 2025. Jaden Lamar has run the football hard. You have a true freshman in Nair Hill who is one of the more electric playmakers that you're going to see in this football game. Now, he's a true freshman. I would be surprised if he gets 15 carries in this football game, but when he has the ball, he can go out and change a game. What you've seen from Katron Allen, what you've seen from Nick Singleton, and their consistency over the last couple of years, it's hard not to rock with this Penn State running back room. Here's another interesting one, the wide receiver position. And we're going to lump in the tight ends as well. I mean, you look at Oregon and say it's a younger room. Well, I don't even know if it's fair to say it's young. Their wide receiver one is young. He's a true freshman named Corey Moore. The rest of them, Gary Bryant, Malik Benson, they've been around the sport over the last couple of years. I think both of these wide receiver rooms, they have a lot to prove in this football game. And what I mean by that is, hey, it's looked good for Oregon to start 2025. For Penn State, I think you're still trying to figure out just how good these new wide receivers are that Penn State brought in through the portal. When I look at Oregon, you've looked really, really good against lesser competition. What do these wide receivers look like when they're going up against one of the better secondaries that we're going to see in the sport? Because look, the Corey Moore's looked awesome, right? Malik Benson has looked awesome. You got a really good tight end in Kenyon Sadiq as well. You want to see them do it against top competition. I'm going to lean Oregon because when you start looking at the numbers and say, all right, Oregon's wide receivers over 500 yards after the catch so far in 2025, they're averaging 14 yards per catch. And then you look at Penn State, only 11.2 yards per catch, only 300 yards after the catch. I feel like there's a little bit more playmaking ability in this Oregon wide receiver room versus Penn State. Now, another really unique conversation when you're stacking these two pass catcher rooms is the tight ends. I think there are really good tight ends on both sides of the football. Kenyon Sadiq, I still believe, is one of the best tight ends in the country. Luke Reynolds, he might be one of the most important players in this football game. Look how valuable Tyler Warren was in the big moments for Penn State last year. And you're going to look to the second-year tight end, Luke Reynolds, who I think is an absolute stud, and say, hey, I wouldn't be surprised if Luke Reynolds is the leading pass catcher for Penn State on Saturday night. I wouldn't be surprised when it's 3rd and 5 and you have those crucial downs to move the chains and stay on the field on offense. Would not be surprised to see Luke Reynolds getting the majority of those targets. Can he provide that same value as Tyler Warren? Might be one of the bigger storylines in this game, but from a pure playmaking ability standpoint, hey, what wide receiver room, or I should say, what pass catcher room has the ability to change the game more? I'm going to go with the Oregon Ducks. Offensive line. This is another really tricky one, right? These are two, in my opinion, top 5 offensive lines that you see in the country. Here's the difference. Oregon has a chance to have a lot of guys get picked on in the NFL draft on this offensive line. And then you look at Penn State, you're saying the same thing. I'm going to go with Penn State, and I'm going to go with Penn State for one specific reason. And that is I've seen this Penn State offensive line handle some of the better defensive fronts that we see in the sport. You could make the argument that Oregon's offensive line has looked better through the first 4 games of 2025. My biggest question is Alex Harkey and Isaiah World. Really, really good offensive tackles. Alex Harkey's coming from Texas State. Isaiah World's coming from Nevada. I'll say this. I don't think Alex Harkey or Isaiah World have seen this kind of defensive front. And I think just as importantly, they haven't really played. They haven't flat out played in this kind of environment. Because you have that question of, hey, what does Alex Harkey and what does Isaiah Ward look like against the best defenses in the country? What do they look like in one of the best environments in all of college football? I'll go with the offensive line that's been there and done that. That's going to be you talk about another interesting storyline. Hey, who has the best offensive line? I'm not totally sure if we know. I'm going to lean Penn State because I know a little bit more about this unit. But if Oregon's offensive line goes on the road, handles these really good edge rushers, and handles this environment, you're looking at an Oregon team that very well could get this one done on the road Saturday night. I mean, we're kind of going 50-50 here, right? You might lean the running backs with Penn State. You might lean the offensive line with Penn State, but you might lean the quarterback with Oregon. You might lean the wide receivers with Oregon. But in all cases, like very, very close. You could make the argument for both sides. Defensive side of the football, these defensive lines to me are very, very similar. I mean, they got some dominant edge rushers with maybe some depth concerns in the middle of the defensive line, but they both have one really good interior defensive lineman. You look at the way Amari Washington has played for Oregon. You look at the way we've seen Zane Durant play for Penn State. It's been a quiet start for Zane Durant. I ain't got many question marks about how good Zane Durant is as a football player. Getting into the pick here. This one's really hard, and you could go either way. I'm going to lean Oregon because of the edge rushers that they have, not only getting after the passer, but their ability to stop the run. And that's the biggest storyline heading into this football game is like Penn State's rushing attack. It is dominant, really good offensive line, phenomenal running backs going up against an Oregon defensive line that hasn't been great stopping the run so far. Here's the storyline. Mateo Yu, Tatum, those two edge rushers, there's not only some of the best pass rushers in the country, they are so good stopping the run from that position. They're going to need to be elite stopping the run from that position at Saturday night in Happy Valley. Slight lean to Oregon, but again, you could certainly make the argument that Penn State has it too. Linebacker position, I'm going to lean Penn State here, and I'm going to lean Penn State because I've seen a little bit more of a fingerprint from the Penn State linebackers. Now, look, I know Jerry Mix and Bryce Betcher, they've gotten their hands on some footballs, right, and have created some turnovers. I look at the Penn State linebackers, especially under Jim Knowles, and say they are just penetrating. They are firing downhill. You look at Tony Rojas and say 5 TFLs and 2 sacks through 3 games of the season. You can say the same thing for Amari Campbell, who has 3 TFLs and 1 sack through 3 games of the season. Oregon's linebackers have been really good, but the impact in the negative plays that Penn State's linebackers have been able to create thus far in 2025, I'm going to lean Penn State. I think Tony Rojas is probably the best linebacker that you see on the football field Saturday night. Again, a very close one. This is what makes this game so fun is I know that might piss off some Oregon fans, and I get it. Like, you could make the argument with what we've seen from Jerry Mixon and what we've seen from Bryce Betcher early in the season. You could make the argument that you take Oregon's linebackers. It's razor tight with almost all of these position groups in the back end. This is where I'm going to go Oregon. And this is a little bit of a projection, right? Penn State's had a really, really good sec. I think Oregon's secondary has the chance to be really, really special in 2025. Because I look at Ife Obadegu and say, look, if we're talking about this kid as a top 20 NFL draft pick in 2 years, wouldn't be all that surprised. If we're talking about Brandon Finney on the other side as a top 20 NFL draft pick, wouldn't be all that surprised. They got a couple of guys in the 2 deep who have played very good football to start 2025. They have an all Big Ten safety in Dylan Tiemann. I think Aaron Flowers, Peyton Woodard, and Kingston Lopa have been playing really good at the safety position as well. I apologize because I just named every single player in that secondary room. It's deep. It's a little bit young, and you want to see what they look like in this kind of environment, but the talent is undeniable with the Oregon Ducks in the back end. That is one of the biggest reasons I'm buying stock in Oregon this year. I don't think Oregon secondary was great last year. It was solid, but it wasn't great. I think they have the opportunity to be great in 2025. You look at Penn State. Hey, Penn State, plenty of talent as well. AJ Harris, teams just don't throw to AJ Harris. He's only faced 1 target this year. I don't blame them because AJ Harris is one of the best in the sport. You've gotten phenomenal play from true freshman Darius Dixon as well. That's another storyline, quick storyline before we sign out. There's some true freshmen that are going to matter in this football game, right? I mean, you got Darius Dixon at Penn State. You got Brandon Finney at the boundary cornerback for Oregon. You got Chaz Coleman coming off the edge for Penn State. You have DeCorian Moore at the wide receiver position for Oregon. Like, hey, what freshman manage the moment the best? What freshman can have an impact on this football game? That's certainly another storyline as well. And I promise you, I didn't do this on purpose. I mean, it's just about 50-50. You split these two teams and say, hey, these teams, it's about as good of a football game as we could ask for with a great environment. What team plays their best football is probably going to win this game. I took Oregon in this one, and it probably has a little bit more to deal with. Hey, I'm a believer in Dante Moore. Going to be a really good football game. This was a really fun way to dive into this game. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.